All right, cool. Glasses on, so I look smart, but the people on the stream can't tell. So yeah, this Android secret weapon. This talk used to be Kotlin, Android's other white meat, but we've had some problems with projects at Udacity with having like rampant bacon, and we're expanding into places like Saudi Arabia and Egypt. So having pork in the title of the talk is probably a bad idea. So. I am a content developer and curriculum lead at Udacity. What that means is basically I get to make cool courses with Googlers and other SMEs in the Android world and provide them to students because most of our Android courses are all available free on the internet. And you can go to that link and see our Android Developer Nanodegree. I promise this is the last time that I'm gonna like do the Udacity spiel. Well, not really, but it's gonna come at the end the next time. So, what's up, chat? All right, so as for our agenda, we're gonna talk about Kotlin and basic overview of the language, how Kotlin makes Android way more awesome, and I'll have a bit of sample code throughout the doc. So quick poll, who's used Kotlin? I know at least one person back there has used it. 2. Okay, cool. And if you're on the stream, just frantically wave or something, and I'll sort of acknowledge you and say that it's like 25% of people watching. So Kotlin's a statically typed programming language for the JVM. Like many other JVM languages, like Groovy, it's 100% Java compatible. And it also has very good first-class IDE support in IntelliJ, JetBrains, and Android Studio. And it kind of also compiles to JavaScript, but you know, that's weird, whatevs. So, so here's kind of the canonical hello world, both in Java and in Kotlin. One thing that you'll notice on the Kotlin side is you don't have to have an exclosing class to create a main function. The other thing is that the main function, and I call everything functions and not functions and methods and all that stuff. It's functions, because that's what it was in math class. But anyways, so yeah, so the function is declared with the fun keyword. And then the other key difference, other than the lack of semicolons on the Kotlin side, is that the type declaration is after the variable. Kind of like I believe Scala does this as well. And one of the other cool things, where's something that I have open, is that with Android Studio and IntelliJ IDEA, you can convert to Kotlin code straight into application. So this is a project that I've already partially moved over to Kotlin. And here's just a normal Java, just a Pojo class. And I can go over and convert it by going to the convert to Kotlin thing. And it converts everything. So yeah, so JetBrains has made it really easy to integrate Kotlin in your code. And let me go back and undo that because I don't need that right now. One of the other things that Kotlin addresses that Java doesn't is null safety. A variable cannot be null by default. And the reasoning for this is that you can, if something cannot be null by default, and you have to go through extra like directives and hoops to make something null, that means that probably you're going to find your errors with null safety or whatever at compile time and not during runtime. And this is extra important for something like Android, where you don't want your app just randomly crashing. So here's a bit of declaring variables. And we can see on the top one, we have a variable of a string type, and we assigned it to null. That's not going to compile. That's going to flag it at the compiler level. The next type is with the question mark after it, that's basically saying that this type is either going to be string or null, but it also needs to be declared at the time that it's assigned. There's an extra special directive to let you do it later. We'll talk about that in a second. So the next couple of lines of code, we're assigning name to John, and when we're trying to check the length of it, we have this question mark dot. And if you've used Groovy before, this will look very similar to you. And it's basically saying, check to see if this object is null, and then if it's not null, proceed with whatever comes after it. And you can chain these, multiple of these together. So if this were like, I don't know, what's something that returns itself? So if this was like some type of builder or something that you could chain variables, chain function calls together, you could do question mark dot, infinity times. And in this bottom one, after we've assigned it to null, calling that same property is going to return null. It's not going to null pointer exception on you. So I've touched on this a little bit before with the last slide. You can declare variables in two ways with either a var or a val. Var allows reassignment. Val prevents it. And the thing that you need to understand is it's not exactly immutability, because if the underlying type is able to be mutated, so if you have array list or something, you can only assign that array list once, but you can add stuff to it or remove things from it. So it's not exactly immutability per se, but it just prevents reassignment. And this last one down here for late initialization is a directive that you can put on your variables to say, and actually, I screwed up this slide because it's supposed to be late init var, but anyway, assume that's there. But anyway, late initialization says, at the time that this is assigned, I don't know what this is going to be, so I promise that before I use it, I'm going to properly initialize it. And there are other ways to get around this that I'm not going to talk about, but check the documentation on Kotlin Lang for that stuff. So let's go to, which app? Go to this one. All right. Actually, no, I want to go to this guy. Yeah. All right, so this is a Android app that I have running, that I have created. And one thing that you'll notice with this class, it's using MVP, is that you have actual like parameter variables in the class declaration. And for Kotlin, basically, stop clicking. Okay. For Kotlin, it's basically a way to define your default constructor. And just like Java, you can have multiple constructors, but this will be like the default one for this recording interactor impl. After this colon is the list of classes and or interfaces that you want to extend from. So for this one, it's extending from recording interactor. That's an interface. But I have another example right here. Okay. This one is extending from main presenter, which is an interface, and then broadcast receiver, which is a class. So that makes it kind of very simple for you to be able to extend and not have to think, okay, do I use extends, do I use implements, or have errors when you're changing classes from one to the other. Another thing to note is, go back to my slides. Okay, and here's kind of a smaller example where I have a class animal, and the default constructor is that it specifies a species. Now, when I have this val here, this actually creates a class variable that is not rewritable of a string. And I should have put string on these. My bad. But anyways, down here is a secondary constructor where I can set a genus and a species, and it has to call through to our default class constructor. Any questions so far? Cool. All right, and we touched on this a bit before with inheritance, where it doesn't matter if it's a class or a interface. They just come after the colon. So in this example, I have a class called 2D point and a class 3D point. And one thing that you'll notice with the 2D point is I have a keyword called open here. And basically with open, in Kotlin, classes are by default final or sealed or whatever you want to call it, where they can't be extended. So you have to proactively declare this class can be extended to be able to extend it. And extension functions are a way that you can extend a class that's closed. So string, for instance, is a final class in Java and all its variants. So this is a way that I can add a new function to string called .first that returns the first character. And collections, there are a bunch of helper functions to create collections, to create array lists, hash maps, all that type of stuff. And those can also have extension functions as well. And you can also do a lot of different kind of, not really reactive, but map-reduce type things like finding the minimum, the maximum, average, filtering, all that type of stuff. So Lambdas, Kotlin's got them. I'm not going to really talk about them so much because that could be its own talk, and I kind of want to get to the Android stuff. But here's a quick example at the bottom where you can extend int to have a function called times and do something that's very readable, 2 times 8, and have it return an integer. All right. So for how Kotlin makes Android awesome. To add Kotlin to your project, you'll need to add a couple of things to your build scripts. This is the stuff that you need to add to the outer build script, and this is the stuff that needs to be added to the inner build script. This line that I commented right here is not exactly required. I generally don't separate my Kotlin and my Java because sometimes I decide certain things are better in Kotlin, certain things are better in Java, and I don't want to have 50 million files in 50 million directories. So you can do kind of as you will because it can cross-compile very well, and you don't have to worry about things being in the wrong namespace and all that. All right, so Anko is a DSL for Kotlin. Have any of you guys used Groovy here? Okay, 1. Oh, 3. Okay, cool. So in Groovy, they have domain-specific languages to do layouts. And in Anko, you can do that for Android UIs. So let me go to an example. All right, and it's here. 3, 4. All right. And I'm going to bring up. So this is one of the first projects from our Android Basics program. And it's just a simple single view with some text views and an image. So here's kind of how it's laid out in Anko. Each view type uses pretty much the name of the view. So this is a vertical layout. It has layout parameters of match parent for the height and width. It has an image view. This is the resource. and so on and so forth. You can also set margins and deal with relative layout and stuff like that. I'm not saying that you should do all of your UIs like this, but what I've found with Anko is it's really easy to prototype things. So I might have kind of just rough out something, and then when I want to refine it, I might go to the actual XML. Yeah. So, is that a question or just cough?
Just a cough.
Okay, my bad. And so yeah, so if we look at the layout, it's just kind of your normal layout, but this is the same stuff, the images and text views and stuff like that. So it just gives you options on ways that you can kind of interact with your things. One of the ways that, and here's a smaller example of just a button and a text. And the thing that you see here at the bottom with the on-click and the toast is Anko has extensions to allow you to do on-click listeners and toast messages and things like that. So this is actually the part that I've used Anko a lot for, is for injecting a quick toast or some of the stuff that, did that already? Some of this stuff right here with being able to do intents and alerts and async tasks and things like that. So, yeah. So it has a couple of intent handlers, and these are the basic ones. The ones that I've used the most out of this list are browse and share. And these can just go into your regular UI. So here's another example of that, of where that same text field that we had from before, when it on-clicks, it launches the intent to go to whatever your browser service is. And you can also pass intent flags and things like that, and there's also a shortened way to call a specific individual intent. And yeah, and I'm gonna show you some more code. Is this the right one? Yeah. All right. So here's kind of another layout that I've done with Anko, and this is for a, I'll show you the NewsApp. It is, oops, my bad. Okay, and it's here. And do I have internet? I might not have internet. Oops. Huh. Okay, that's not coming up. But I will show you what it looks like right here. Reason why I like this one is I have it preset to Angela Merkel, and she was here for a press conference with Trump, the President of the United States, for people on the stream. And there was a interaction with them where it was this awesome look of incredulity of like, what is this guy saying? So, but anyway, that's how the app looks. And let me go back to my code. All right, here it is. All right, so yeah, so for this, the original app used a couple of loaders, and I replaced it with Anko's async task. So I just have a Lambda closure, whatever you want to call it, piece of runnable code where I have the things that I want to run in the background, and that is down here, where I just have load in background of loading JSON from this URL that's built from the Guardian API. It gets the text and returns a JSON object. And this is a lot shorter than the complementary Java would be because I don't have to worry about using string builder and all that stuff. I can just get me the text of the thing. That is wrapped in our async task up here. And then I have a recycler view initialization that I'll get to in a second. Down here. Okay. And here is a kind of simpler example of that same thing, of where you have a function or just the code that you want to run in that closure, getting the text from a URL, and then on the UI thread, returning a toast result. So LastAdapter, one of the suckiest things of writing Android is writing recycler adapters and view holders and all that stuff. So LastAdapter is a library that uses the Android data binding capabilities, and it's available in Java and in Kotlin that allows you to do recycler views without having to write view holders, view adapters, or making any changes to your model classes, which you're probably already writing anyway. So that same app that I just showed you, you'll have to add a couple of things to your build.gradle file to enable this, but it's not that crazy. The only things that are required is a LastAdapter and the data binding. In this specific project, I'm also using Anko, so that's why Anko is there. But they work very well together. And this is the model class that I have. It's just your normal, just generic Pojo, not really doing that much. And then when I go to, oops, my there? No, it's the item layout. Yeah, this is the one. All right. So there are a couple of changes I need to make to my item layout. I needed to wrap it in a layout tag and add a variable for the name of the variable and the type for the class. And then the rest of this is just your normal data binding stuff. So item.title, item author, things like that. Yeah. So one thing that I needed to add for this specifically, because I have an image, is I wanted to have an easy and simple way to give it an image URL and have it loaded. So to do that, you have an additional annotation binding adapter where you're giving the string that you're going to bind to. In this case, it's image URL. So I have that on my app::image URL namespace. And in the string, I'm passing through the URL to the thumbnail, well, the string representation of the URL. So that when this is invoked and it loads the image, it actually uses Picasso to grab the image and load it into that specific view. And I just showed that stuff. And oh yeah, the async request, that's right. Wanted to show that with LastAdapter. Actually, I already did that. Learning, did that. Okay. So this is the actual LastAdapter code for creating all of that stuff behind the scenes. You pass in a collection of objects and the data binding object ID, which in my case is br.item, because that's something that's auto-generated for you. The name of the model class that you're mapping it to and the layout ID. In this case, it would be news item and item layout or layout item, one of those two. And then into the list or recycler view that you're going to use. You can also do an expanded model where you're doing all of the stuff that you would do with your view holder, like setting what happens when it gets initially bound, recycled, long click, or clicked. The way that you do that is you would have to pass in the class name of the object binding, and this is something else that's automatically generated for you based off of the layout ID name, and then pass in your closure, your lambdas, or your functions for all of these tasks. So in the actual app, it looks like this. I have a list of items, my bound object for my UI, the news item, Pojo, that we saw, and then I want it to respond to clicks. So the way that I did that is actually set a tag on the view so that when you click it, it pulls that tag and then fires off to Anko to do a browse URL. And one thing to note here, items has 2 exclamation points after it. That has to do with the fact that it was declared as one of those types that could be null or it could have a value. So the 2 exclamation points says, I am definitely sure that I want to get the actual object. Like, don't no dereference or anything, just give me the object. I'm sure it'll be there, so give it to me. And when it was all said and done, an app that was 500 lines in Kotlin came out to about 270 lines in a mix of the two. And I saved a lot of that writing of code came from eliminating the NewsAdapter, the view holder, and all of the weird loader stuff, which might be good or bad to do, but like loaders are a pain in the butt. And actually, I did not insert that into my slides, but I will go to, actually I don't have internet, that's right. So one thing that Kotlin has is a set of Android extensions where it kind of creates synthetic, it's kind of like Butterknife, if people have used Butterknife, where it binds names from your Android XML to your actual activity file and allows you to use those without doing find by ID. But I apparently dropped those slides, so I apologize for that. My final spiel before I open up for questions is Udacity is hiring. We have positions for all types of things, especially in our content group where we get to speak at conferences and talk to cool Googlers and not so cool Googlers. Sorry, chat. Chat's a cool Googler, but I like calling you out because you're kind of like the human embodiment of like Grumpy Cat, so. But anyway, yeah, so personally I've been able to make lots of Android courses with people from Google Design, people that are working on Android Wear, and ubiquitous computing, things like that. So really awesome place to be, so check it out. And with that, I have probably too much time. Okay, I'm good. Open up for questions. Anyone? Okay. Thanks for coming.